You've shaken up this political scene magnificently over the last 9 months.
I think we have, and we've changed the whole debate. You know, getting 23% of the vote in the county elections back on May the 2nd even surprised me, I can tell you. I had no idea we'd do that well. And I can see now, you know, the three-party leaders talking about immigration, talking about Europe, talking about welfare benefits for migrants, and I know that we're driving that agenda, so I'm very pleased about it.
And did you have a nice holiday?
No, afraid not. Plan to, but I'm afraid being in charge of a small party that's just had a big success.
All the others seem to manage, you know, Cameron was in Cornwall, Clegg, I believe.
Well, he was everywhere. He was away for about a month from what I could make out. No, I had a couple of days in the West Country and that was it. And that's a bit sad. You know, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I'll make up for it at some point in time.
And was it in a caravan? Were you in your...
No, we were down on the Devon coast for a couple of days.
Yep.
But, no, I mean, we have had success in a political party brings a few problems, and we've got some problems in the party.
What are your problems?
Well, the biggest dilemma I've got is this, that on the one hand, I want UKIP to be a party of free speech. I want it to be a party that pushes the boundary of debate. It's what we're good at. But on the other hand, I can't have people firing off in all directions, making all sorts of ludicrous comments which divert the debate away from our main issue. So it's a difficult party management issue.
How many seats do you think you will fight at the general election?
What fascinates me, Peter, is that you and all of you are talking about the general election. It's as if everyone's forgotten that 29 weeks from now...
No, we'll come on to the European election.
We have a European election.
But I would like...
You know, my view would be we'd fight every single seat. In fact, we'll probably fight more seats than the other parties because we're established now in Northern Ireland too.
So you can envisage fighting 650 seats?
Yes.
In the general election?
Yes.
And what sort of vote share of the... We'll come on to the European elections, but what sort of share of the vote would you hope to get?
Ask me after...
How many seats do you think you'll win?
We have got European elections next year, but more significantly from a UKIP perspective, over 5,000 council seats. How we do in the European elections matters for momentum for our party, but how we do in the council elections will work out how many genuine target seats we have. I don't know the answer to that yet.
And how many candidates have you got so far?
Well, we are focusing our energy and resources on the European election campaign and on getting council candidates ready for next year. So at the moment, actually adopted, not a very large number.
Do you think you will win a seat yourself in the general election?
I don't know. Have
you got any plans? Have you pinpointed somewhere where you'll stand? You said in Buckingham.
I am focusing my energy on trying to turn the European elections next year into a referendum on our membership of the European Union and the particular aspect of open borders, with Bulgaria and Romania likely to dominate the news. And to be absolutely honest with you, I have thought about the general election and where I might stand, but it's not my top priority.
Well, let's just stay with that. You're going to have you turn next June into June into that referendum.
Yeah.
Now, the Conservative Party has promised a referendum on our membership.
Has now, after years of saying they wouldn't give us one.
Yeah.
But, and after a cast iron guarantee before, I mean, it's not very credible, is it?
It's totally. I think it's completely credible now.
Do you?
If David Cameron becomes Prime Minister, are you saying are you accusing him of bad faith on that scale?
Well, it looks very insincere to me. I mean, 5 times in the preceding year to that so-called great speech, he said, I do not want there to be a referendum on our membership of the European Union because I believe it's in Britain's interests to be part of it.
He's now made that speech. He's completely put his credibility on the line. It would be impossible for him not to hold an in-out referendum.
You may be right.
Actually, I'll allow you. I think that's partly down to the pressure from UKIP. Absolutely. Well done. But now you've got it. Surely you should actually throw the weight of UKIP behind the Conservatives and their referendum.
No, because Mr Cameron says that he wants to, regardless of the result of the so-called renegotiation, which is really an attempt to kick this issue into the long grass for 4 years, regardless of the result of it, he will campaign for there to be a yes vote. He's already made that perfectly clear.
He has not said that.
He made it absolutely clear he will be supporting a yes vote. He even indicated in one of the Spanish newspapers, he'd be devastated if it wasn't a yes vote. So he is all for our continued membership of the Union. We are not.
What he said, though, is that he will allow this referendum. He will create the circumstances, whether he votes yes or no, and he has said there will be circumstances.
Well, I'm not prepared to wait until the end of 2017 to have a referendum. I think it is a terrible waste of time. Just how much more damage will be done to British business between now and then. It is unacceptable to be expected to wait that long. The real interesting question is not Cameron's position.
As far as you're concerned, it's purely a question of timing.
Well, it's a question of believing him. It's a question of knowing that it's 4 completely wasted years. Completely wasted years. There is no renegotiation on offer of any substantial nature.
Let's then throw forward then to the general election, where you do have one party which has the UKIP policy of a referendum. Why don't you support? Surely UKIP must support the Conservatives.
I mean, how much do you want to bet me that Labour pledge a referendum too? Oh, and the Lib Dems as well. Actually, at every general election,
I think it's pretty clear from last weekend they're not going to do it. Yep.
No clearer than Cameron was in 2012 about why he would not pledge a referendum. At every general election since 1997, all 3 parties have promised a referendum and failed to deliver. I have no doubt that when we go into that poll, Miliband will be offering one too.
At the moment, he's not, making quite clear that he won't, actually. So you have Cameron fights the next election as the only party offering a referendum, an in-out referendum in Europe within 2 years. Surely at that point you say, we're disbanding UKIP, we're throwing our weight.
The next election is on May the 22nd, 2014.
No, I'm asking about the general election.
I'm not interested. I'm talking about the next election. It's next year, and the media are obsessing with what will happen in 2015, and they're all ignoring the fact that next year's European elections are the most important European elections to have been held in this country since 1979, and we started sending members to the Parliament, and that actually the credibility of all the party leaders is on the line next year.
Sure. So what it sounds to me very much like, therefore, is if you want a European referendum, you must vote Conservative.
If you want a European referendum,
if you vote UKIP, you get European federalism.
No.
That's the logic of your position.
If you really want a referendum, you jolly well make sure that UKIP win the Euro elections next year to keep the pressure on, and then you make sure that UKIP has decent representation in the House of Commons in 2015. Who knows? What if UKIP held the balance of power? I tell you what, there'd be a referendum then.
I don't understand that at all. The logic of your position means that if I want a referendum on Europe, if I want the chance to vote no on Europe, I'm going to vote for the Conservative Party, because that's the only party which is offering me that opportunity.
Now, at this moment in time, if we'd had this conversation a year ago, you couldn't have made those points to me. And this time next year, when Miliband's offered one, you won't be able to make the argument either. And I go further than this. We do not support Mr Cameron's European policy because he is utterly committed to our membership of the Union and has done some enormously damaging things to British business since he became Prime Minister. But also, we don't support his climate change agenda and the massive tax we're putting on everyone's electricity bill. We don't support the fact that he's turned his back on grammar schools and social mobility. I mean, there's virtually nothing that Cameron has stood for since 2005 that we support.
Are there any circumstances where after 2015 Cameron can go to Europe, have his negotiation and bring back a good enough deal which would enable you to support him?
No. I don't wish for us to be part of a political union. I don't wish for a foreign court to overrule us.
Yeah. Now, to move the matter on, I want to get a sense of what UKIP is as a political party. Are you a sort of fully fledged political party in your own right, or are you a sort of conservative pressure group?
No, we're not a conservative pressure group. This is a London-based myth. I would challenge you to come out with me around the north of England and see, by-election after by-election, UKIP stunning people in the old Labour areas with just how many votes we were getting. We started off in the 90s necessarily as a protest group against Maastricht and all the implications of that. It's grown in time to be a political party with a full agenda that wants smaller government, wants more individual responsibility and freedom, and it's not going away.
But we haven't yet seen you develop any kind of fully fledged. That means to say, therefore, you're going to have a full manifesto with policies in every area, does it?
Yeah, and in fact, we've got our conference this week, and energy policy will very much be at the heart of that, because it's astonishing, isn't it, that after all these years of Labour and the coalition, we still face the prospects of the lights going out in Britain in 2 years' time. That says to us there is need for fresh thinking on lots of areas.
Economic policy, which matters even more to people, they're doing rather well at the moment, aren't they?
Well, we've had a bit of an upturn, yes, thank goodness, after, since 2008, a pretty miserable time. I think my concern is that the upturn is pretty much London-based. I don't think it's being felt in the Midlands and the north of England.
But would you support the austerity policies?
What austerity?
What you want to have more austerity?
There isn't any.
right?
There isn't. I mean, but at the end of this coalition government,
Mm-hmm.
the national debt will have increased by 40%. We need to have a far more honest conversation with the British people about that.
You get more likely you'll get that from the Conservatives though than Labour, surely.
I can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference. I mean, frankly, Miliband hasn't said.
Well, I can tell you the difference. I follow politics quite carefully. There's been a clear difference, certainly, that the Conservatives.
Well, then why did the Conservatives support the first 8 years of Gordon Brown's spending plans? You know, where there was no opposition politics going on at all in this country. I think.
Well, the first few years of Gordon Brown's spending plans were Conservative spending plans. Basically, there is a difference. You'll get more cuts under the Conservatives. Surely you would consider.
Well, there are no cuts yet. No cuts at all. You know, we are borrowing £120 billion a year more than we're spending.
If you're objecting to that, then you're saying you'll get pretty well double the defence bill. You're a bit of a shambles.
Do you think that an increase in the national debt of 40% during the lifetime of this coalition government is a victory?
It's a very, very important point, that. But on the other hand, you're saying in government, which you're saying are a mainstream political party, that we've got to assume this is a proposition, you'll raise defence spending, you will reverse certain benefit changes. I mean, the sums aren't going to add up, are they?
We have got clearly to cut the level of government expenditure. That to me is the key of everything here. Now there are some very easy hits here, such as the 20 billion a year we pay to Brussels, such as the £1 billion a month in foreign aid, much of it, as you know yourself, misdirected, and they're the cheap shot, easy starts, and I accept that. We've got to make some fundamental radical cuts in the quangocracy in this country and in the massive growth of middle management throughout our public services. And it's up to UKIP, before 2015, to put down coherently on a piece of paper where those cuts need to come.
So next issue is this. Are there any circumstances in which you would have a pact with the Conservative Party? You rather suggested you might.
I rather suggest I do a deal with the devil if it got us back the independence of our country and the ability of us to run our own affairs. That's, I'm not interested in this usual political motive of attempting to climb the greasy pole and seek ministerial position. That's not what this is about.
Right, so in other words, you're not a full political party. You're one which is happy to dissolve itself to achieve certain aims.
If you mean, are we like all the other parties where getting into office means more than doing what is needed in the national interest, then we're not like them, no.
What I'm trying to understand is what your relationship with the Conservatives is. Would you happily merge with them on an anti-European ticket?
I don't think you understand what's going on here. Mr Cameron is fanatically pro-EU. Mr Hague, in the last 10 years, has now become fanatically pro the EU developing its own foreign policy. The grassroots of the Conservative Party in the country, I'd say 3/4 of them, feel as UKIP do on Syria, feel as UKIP do on mass immigration, on grammar schools, on many of these issues. But the leadership of the Conservative Party and the parliamentary party of the Conservative Party are overwhelmingly pro-EU.
The parliamentary party are pro. I think that's very unfair to Mr Cameron. He said he doesn't like the current situation. He said he's going to renegotiate it. He's promised a referendum in Europe. I mean, and what's more the poor fellow got to do?
Your trust is touching, and this is the man that gave us a cast iron guarantee. This is the man who, since he became Prime Minister, has handed over control of Britain's financial services industry to a Frenchman who doesn't really like us very much. This is the man with Hague who has progressively signed us up to an EU foreign policy, which, thank goodness, hasn't been put into place fully yet. This is a guy who is diametrically opposed to virtually everything UKIP stands for.
And so, if you get another Conservative leader, can you imagine doing a deal?
Well, if we had a Conservative leader who thought we should reduce electricity bills and become self-sufficient in energy, that we should bring back social mobility and do a range of things like this, then that would be far more interesting. But it looks a long way away.
Now you're talking about UKIP as if you were a kind of a mainstream party with a range of policy issues. Earlier were talking about it as if Europe was the one.
My motivation.
Haven't you got to decide?
My personal motivation. And the reason I got into politics is I want us to get our country back. That is my personal motivation. But as I tried to explain earlier, UKIP is now a living, breathing, organic thing. And it has a range of views. It draws its support from the Labour Party, from the Liberal Democrats, from non-voters. Eastleigh was fascinating. Only a third of our vote in Eastleigh came from Tory voters. So you've got something here that is across the board, that is unafraid to speak out, is not bowed by political correctness, and people find that very attractive.
What about, a few months ago you talked about being in touch of certain Conservative MPs. Is that still the case?
Well, Stuart Wheeler really has been the Sherpa on that, far more than me. If Conservative MPs or Labour MPs want to come and join UKIP, that's great, but it's not a priority.
Have you been in talks with any of them?
No, not for a very long time.
There are nothing.
Not
going
for,
on there.
personally, not for a very long time. And
is Stuart Wheeler, your treasurer, whatever he is,
Yeah.
is he in touch with them?
I suspect he still is, yes. But that, again, what I'm trying to do here is to radically improve the calibre of people that we have standing for us in the European elections next year, because that's much needed, and it's part of our growing up process. And what I'm trying to do is to get us into a position where we can cause next May an earthquake in British politics. They are my priorities.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.